brothers remove the head coverings, all sisters pray with the heads covered. And we face the east towards Jerusalem. Elder Mikhail, can you go ahead and open us up with prayer?
Heavenly Father, Yahweh, most holy and true covenant, sovereign Elohim of Abraham, Yishak, and Yaakov. We owe all thanks, Father Yahweh, to you, and all glory unto you, Father Yahweh. Yeshua's holy and mighty name, Father Yahweh, because you have chosen us, Father Yahweh, to come to you, Father, to worship you, Father Yahweh. We pray to touch our hearts, Father Yahweh, and keep us soft and valuable, Father Yahweh, to hear your voice and you speak to us, Father Yahweh. Because we know, Father, sometimes that the enemy tries to clog our ears up, Father Yahweh, and our flesh tries to clog our ears up, Father Yahweh, and our heart, Father Yahweh, because of the pressures of this world, Father. So we ask, Father Yahweh, Yeshua's holy and mighty name, Father Yahweh, to be patient with us, Father, and have mercy, continual mercy upon us, Father Yahweh, because we need you every second of the day. We ask, Father Yahweh, because you know, Father, we try to contend with the one that contend with us, and it is you that will contend with the one that contend with us, Father, as long as we, Father Yahweh, do your holy mighty will, Father Yahweh. As long as we have faith, Father Yahweh, and fight to get faith, Father, to keep in your good graces, Father Yahweh, because we know, Father Yahweh, that we was worthy of death, Father Yahweh. We are filthy rags, Father Yahweh. We know, Father, that you will clean us up, Father Yahweh, if we continue to do your will and keep your commandments, Father Yahweh. So we give you thanks and praise, Father, that you are holy by name, that you allow us to even come to you, Father Yahweh. So we ask, Father Yahweh, to allow your ministry, Father Yahweh, to speak, Father Yahweh, to the rest of the world as you use my brother's voices and my voice and anyone's voice, Father Yahweh, that asks questions, Father Yahweh, that wants to receive your word, Father Yahweh. We ask, Father Yahweh, to touch our hearts, Father, to speak your word, Father, not our word, Father Yahweh. We give you thanks and praise in Yeshua's holy and mighty name, Father Yahweh. We need your holy and mighty protection around us, Father Yahweh. Your hedge, Father Yahweh. So we can run underneath your high tower, Father. Be confident, Father Yahweh, covered by your wings, Father Yahweh. So we give you thanks and praise in Yeshua's holy and mighty name, Father Yahweh. Amen.
Right, shalom. My name is Yadon Yasharal with my brother Yonatan Yasharal. Shalom. And the title of today's Bible study is Soul's Food. Soul's Food. And we are given by commandment that man should live by every word of the Most High, not just bread alone. And we're also told that we shouldn't worry about what we're going to eat and, what we're going to wear. Those are the things that the nations worry about because they don't know the Most High. When you have a good parent, you don't worry about those type of things because that parent is going to do whatever is necessary to make sure that you have what you need. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean what you want, But a good parent is going to always make sure you get what you need and keep you away from what you don't need to deal with. But there's your carnal food that you eat, in which we're commanded to eat a certain type of food, so that we keep our vessels clean, being the chosen servants of the Most High. And then there's also the spiritual food that we have to take in as well, because Yahshua says it's not what goes in the mouth that makes you unclean, but what comes out the mouth. So if you're putting this unclean spiritual food into your body, you're intaking these ways of the world, that's what's going to come out your mouth. And what comes out of your mouth is going to highly affect the deeds and how you carry yourself, your conversation, your behavior. So we're going to open up first in Shemot, Exodus chapter 16. And we're going to take a look at how Yahweh provided food for us. He gave us angels food.
Exodus, Shemot, chapter 16 and verse 1. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Yasharal came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after their departing out of the land of Mitzrayim. And the whole congregation of the children of Yasharal murmured against Moshe and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Yasharal said unto them, Oh, that we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For you have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then said Yahweh unto Moshe, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily.
All right, so the children of Yasharal are complaining to the Most High after he done freed us by miracles and a mighty hand, taking out the strongest nation at this time. And this shows you how close we were to the Most High, as far as how lack of understanding the character of the Most High, that he is going to bring you out to serve him as his servants and call you separate and sanctify you, but then let you starve. That doesn't make any sense. Who would do that? And that's the same reasoning that we'll use, when we're getting our situations. We say, no, the Most High done brought me through too much to allow me to just fall for this or stop for this right here. So this just shows you how lack of understanding we had to the true character of the Most High. And furthermore, in understanding the Most High, all is for his glory. So if he's causing us to be short on food, there's a reason, whether it's by our own actions or whether he's trying to prove. So he's trying to prove us. I will give them a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or not. So what this shows is we could limit our ability to be fruitful in our baskets, be fruitful in our fields, be fruitful in our commerce, based upon our lack of displaying that we will keep the law for the Most High. So that he has to prove us and actually take away more than a comfortable amount from us, so that we can prove to ourselves that we're going to serve the Most High through thick and thin.
Verse 6. And Moshe and Aaron said unto the children of Yasharal, At even then you shall know that Yahweh has brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim. And in the morning then you shall see the glory of Yahweh, for that he hears your murmurings against Yahweh. And what are we that you murmur against us? And Moshe said, This shall be when Yahweh shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, for that Yahweh hears your murmurings which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against Yahweh. And Moshe spoke unto Aaron, Say unto all the congregation of the children of Yasharal, Come near before Yahweh, for he has heard your murmurings. And it came to pass, as Aaron spoke unto the whole congregation of the children of Yasharal, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of Yahweh appeared in the cloud. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Yasharal. Speak unto them, saying, At even you shall eat flesh, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am Yahweh your Elohim. And it came to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay round about the host. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. And when the children of Yasharal saw it, they said to one another, It is manna, for they knew not what it was. And Moshe said unto them, This is the bread which Yahweh has given you to eat. This is the thing which Yahweh commanded, gather of it every man according to his eating, and omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take you every man for them which are in his tents. And the children of Yasharal did so, and gathered, some more, some less.
And notice here it says an omer for every man according to the number of your persons. So it didn't take an effect of, okay, well, what about the big guy? You know, he's kind of hefty. No. He eating too much. He not supposed to eat that much. An omer is enough. And if an omer was too much for somebody, then share it with somebody else. Go ahead.
Verse 18. And when they did measure it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating. And Moshe said, Let no man leave of it till the morning. Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moshe, but some of them left of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moshe was wroth with them. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. And when the sun waxed hot, it melted. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moshe. And he said unto them, This is that which Yahweh has said, Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Shabbat unto Yahweh. Bake that which you will bake today, and seethe that which you will seethe, and that which remains over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up till the morning, as Moshe bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. And Moshe said, Eat that today, for today is the Shabbat unto Yahweh. Today you shall not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Shabbat, in it there shall be none. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the 7th day for to gather, and they found none. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, How long refuse you to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that Yahweh has given you the Shabbat. Therefore he gives you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide you every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. And the house of Yasharal called the name thereof manna. And it was like coriander seed, white. And the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. And Moshe said, This is the thing which Yahweh commands. Fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread wherewith I have fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you forth from the land of Mizraim. And Moshe said unto Aaron, Take a pot, and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before Yahweh to be kept for your generations. As Yahweh commanded Moshe, so Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Yasharal did eat manna 40 years, until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is the 10th part of an ephah.
All right, so an omer is the 10th part of an ephah. And if I remember correctly, a sheaf is what?
Sheaf is what they call.
A sheaf is an omer, right? Yeah. So when you're talking about a sheaf offering, they're letting you know exactly a 10th of an ephah. 1 omer, that's what you're supposed to offer up with your first fruit. So if that's all you giving is an omer to the Most High, then you want to make sure that you giving, if you're only going to give a small amount of something to represent your blessings, you want to make sure you're giving them the best you have, your biggest grapes, your best fruits, you know, the best that you have to offer, because you know Yahweh is the one that's blessing these things. So you see here, he gave us flesh to eat at night, and he gave us the manna to eat in the day. And he said, I'm going to give you twice as much. And on a normal day, it would spoil. It wouldn't even last. But on the Shabbat, he said, no, I'm not going to make you suffer and not eat. I'm not asking you to fast on the Shabbat. I'm just asking you to not go work on the Shabbat. And this is what we have to remember with all these commandments pertaining to the Shabbat. We get a lot of questions about that, you know, lighting a fire and this, that, and all the different things about what you should do on the Shabbat. At the end of the day, just understand what the simple precept of everything is. Work. Don't do no work on the Shabbat. When people had to light fires and do all that stuff back in the day, it wasn't like now where you hit a button and the fire come on. Folks had to gather wood and put it together and light it and do all types of things just to get the fire going and fan it, put water, all that type of stuff on it. So that was work. So he's saying anything that you needed to cook, do that the day before, because that's going to be a lot of work involved just to get that thing cooked. So the same thing with the precept here. You know, it wasn't, it was a sin to gather sticks. It was a sin to go out there and work on the Shabbat. What you going out there gathering sticks for? What you needed to do, you should have did on the 6th day. So in anything that you're thinking about the Shabbat, you want to understand that it's all about resting that day. Because Yahweh did all his work in 6 days and he made the 7th day a national holiday. You rest on that day because I rested. Did we finish that?
Yep.
All right. Let's go to Devarim chapter 8. Devarim chapter 8. Devarim is Deuteronomy. It's D-E-B-A-R, Debar-im, I-M. And you know, you get a lot of people that like to say Devarim. And they like to use that. And that's the same people that say Aleph Bet Vet. Is it a bot or is it a vet? Which one is it? That's the Yiddish. That's bringing that German stuff in there. Yahweh and all that type of stuff. That's not our culture. It's called alphabet, Aleph Bet. Period. Devarim, chapter 8. Deuteronomy, chapter 8. We got to get rid of some of these traditions that we have, that we've learned from a culture that's not ours. If we're saying we're going to step away from Babylon, we need to continue doing that, not just stick with a tradition.
Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 8 and verse 1. All the commandments which I command you this day shall you observe to do, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which Yahweh swore unto your fathers. And you shall remember all the way which Yahweh your Elohim led you these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble you and to prove you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or no. And he humbled you and suffered you to hunger and fed you with manna, which you knew not, neither did your fathers know, that he might make you to know that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh does man live. All
right, so this is the Torah. So we know Yeshua said the same thing. He didn't just, it was made up in the New Testament. He's quoting the things from the Old Testament. Why? Because these things of the Old Testament was made from the beginning. This is the word. That's light. That's the light of man. That was made in Genesis chapter 1, Bereshit, when he said, let there be light, and there was light. So when that light was created, that truth was already existing. Just because it hasn't been divulged to us, it hasn't been divulged. Just like when we were given 613 commandments, it wasn't like it just was created when he went up the mount. This was already there. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Verse 4. Your raiment waxed not old upon you, neither did your foot swell these 40 years. You shall also consider in your heart that as a man chastens his son, so Yahweh your Elohim chastens you. Therefore you shall keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways and to fear him.
So you shall always consider in your heart. So always remember this. When we go through any type of tribulation or anguish, we have to consider that Yahweh chastens his son, his bane, his children. So Yahweh chastens us. So just because you're not physically doing something wrong now doesn't mean that you didn't do something wrong in the past, that you need to consider that you still haven't repented, that you still haven't acknowledged before the Most High. Go ahead.
Verse 6. Therefore you shall keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways and to fear him.
So how do you fear the Most High? How do you Yahweh him?
Keep his commandments.
And walk in his ways. Period. Go ahead.
Verse 7.
He didn't say you should cower from him and be scared and like, oh my goodness, I can't say his name. It's just I'm just so afraid of Yahweh. No, it's reverence. It's a healthy respect, the same respect you have for your parents. Now, when you ain't doing good, you're supposed to fear your parents when you're not doing right. Because you know they're going to bring that belt to your backside. That's when you feared your daddy. You didn't walk around like, oh snap, daddy's coming, I'm afraid. That's over discipline. And some families is like that, where you just terrify your dad. That man crazy. But the only time you're supposed to really be afraid of your father is when you ain't doing something right, because you know he about to handle that business. Go ahead.
Verse 7. For Yahweh your Elohim brings you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of oil, olive, and honey. Excuse me. A land wherein you shall eat bread without scarceness. You shall not lack anything in it. A land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you may dig brass. When you have eaten and are full, then you shall bless Yahweh your Elohim for the good land which he has given you.
All right. So we have a practice of we pray before we eat. Well, we pray before we eat. We praying over the food because we know man has touched a lot of stuff. But do we pray after we eat? Do we thank him? Because right here it says, when you has eaten and are full, then you shall bless Yahweh your Elohim for the good land which he has given you. So we have to also remember Yahweh after we get what we want. Not just before we eat, don't let me get sick. Don't let my stomach get hurt. Please let it be good. No. Also remember to pray after we receive things, not only before we have it. Go ahead.
Verse 11. Beware that you forget not Yahweh your Elohim in not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes which I command you this day. Lest when you have eaten and are full, and have built goodly houses and dwell therein.
So here's another Hebrew lesson where it talks about beware that you forget not Yahweh. So in Greek, when you remember something, the opposite is to forget. So in Greek, when you remember something is like, what's his name? Oh, that's Jonathan. I remembered it. That's the Greek understanding of remembering. But when Hebrew, when it's to remember something or to regard, I think the word was shakar, was to guard it. When you guard that, remembering doesn't mean just it comes to recall, but you actually do the action. And it's showing you here in this verse right here, beware that you forget not Yahweh. Okay, no, I remember Yahweh. I remember he's there. I ain't keeping none of his commandments, but I remember him. No, that's not the Hebrew understanding. Not forgetting Yahweh is keeping his commandments and his judgments and statutes, which he commands this day. So you can't say you remember or you hear or you listen to the word if you're not keeping it. Those two are together. We should never have had that separate. There should never have been words to separate that. Go ahead.
Verse 12, lest when you have eaten and are full and have built goodly houses to dwell therein, and when your herds and your flocks multiply, and your silver and your gold is multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, then your heart be lifted up. And you forget Yahweh your Elohim, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage.
So what happens when you forget Yahweh? You have been fed full. You have goodly houses. You dwelling in your land. You on top of the world. Then you forget, i.e., don't keep his commandments and his judgments and his statutes. So if every time he blesses us to the full and we're eating good and we getting nice things and we have nice houses and beautiful families and we don't keep his commandments and his judgments and his statutes, what do you think naturally anybody is going to do?
Get lifted up.
Take it away from you. They're not gonna continue giving you good job. Keep transgressing my commandments. Keep forgetting me. Keep not doing what I'm asking you to do. Here's some more. Here's some more riches. That's common sense. Go ahead.
Then your heart be lifted up, and you forget Yahweh your Elohim, which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage. Verse 15. Who led you through a great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions and drought, where there was no water, who brought you forth water out of a rock of flint, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers knew not, that he might humble you, and that he might prove you to do you good at your latter end. And you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hand has gotten me this wealth.
So that shows you the characteristic of man, not just Israel. We were slaves. How do you have to humble a slave? He a slave. But because we had our God come in there and our brother Moshe come in there and totally destroy a whole nation and wipe them out, and we done had seas part, we done did all these great things is done for us, we starting to feel ourselves to the point where we forget how this happened. So this shows you the condition of our heart and our propensity to be haughty and forget the Most High anytime something good happens for us. And this is why we suffer as a nation, because anytime he does something good for us, we believe it's us. To the point where when this stuff is happening to us, when we go into this book and we look and say, okay, we're not keeping these commandments while this is happening. Instead, we say, no, we need to come together and we need to spend more money and we need to take guns and go fight white people and fight the power. And we need to take back our control and all this. Which meanwhile, you like 15% in this country. But that's your thinking. Because there's a haughtiness that we have as a nation that we refuse to acknowledge. One, we rather acknowledge and say that white man is stronger than us, rather than say, no, we in this because we did this to ourselves. So we turn around and blame the white man for what he doing. Go ahead.
Verse 17 or verse 18. But you shall remember Yahweh your Elohim, for it is he that gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore unto your fathers as it is this day.
So the opposite of forget is to remember. So what is the definition of remember?
To do that you were told to do.
Exactly. To recall what he says to do and physically do it. Period. That's how you remember Yahweh. Go ahead.
Verse 19. And it shall be if you do at all forget Yahweh your Elohim, and walk after other gods, and serve them, and worship them, I testify against you this day that you shall surely perish. As the nations which Yahweh destroys before your face, so shall you perish, because you would not be obedient to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim.
Because the more he feeds us, the more he takes care of us, the more we rebel against him. So the only time he hears from us is when we hungry and we starving and we need this and we in danger. So naturally, what anybody's going to do is say, well, I want my people close to me. So maybe this is what they need. That's what they want. Let me put them in danger. Let me put them in fear for their lives. Would Elohim if it was day? Would Elohim if it was night? Naturally, because that's the only time he hears from us. Because as soon as we get a credit card, if the limit, is up there, we good. Yahweh ain't hearing from us. So we have to train our minds to depend on him. And this is why some of the way that we're paid and our structures, how we get paid, is probably the worst enemy to us. Because we know we got this money coming in. All we got to do is show up. We know this money is coming in. And we can understand that concept with carnal money. Why we can't understand that concept with Yahweh? All we got to do is show up and keep these commandments and resist the devil. Resist him. And we're going to be taken care of.
What that reminds me of is the wheat and the tear test. If Yah beats the stalk of a wheat, is going to drop forth, good fruit. Mm-hmm. But you beat the stalk of the tear, nothing's coming forth. It's just a dry desert land, mm-hmm. which is seen as bad fruit, or seen as, hold on, you're not going to bring forth anything. You're just cumbering the ground.
Right.
So if Yahweh gives good soil to the tear, you're just going to be a stronger tear. You're just going to be a stronger weed. You're just going to be something right. sucking up all the nutrients out the ground and not being able to bring forth what he asked for it to bring forth.
Right. But Yahweh still makes sure he gives that opportunity. Mm-hmm. He gives that opportunity to tear, to identify himself, to show. You got the same nutrients, you got the same soil, you growing right next to the wheat. Uh-huh. But what you did with your nutrients?
Nothing. Didn't bear fruit, nothing.
Let's go to Matthew chapter 4. Matthew chapter 4.
And that's where Yeshua said the same thing his father said. With the seed out of your mouth. Same chapter.
Matthew, chapter 4. And let's start this at verse 1.
Then was Yeshua led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If you be the Son of Yahweh, command that these stones be made bread.
So Yeshua was 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness. Then after those 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungered. So the adversary, the devil, could have came any of those other times, those whole 40 days and 40 nights. But instead, he waited until Yeshua was actually hungered. And when he saw him hungered, the first thing that he does to try to tempt him is with his stomach. I know you hungry. Turn these rocks into bread. But wasn't he fasting for a reason? He was fasting for a reason. So with the wilderness, it was the same thing with us. The first real test we had in the wilderness when we out is hunger. Hunger and thirst. The belly. Feed me. Go ahead.
Verse 4. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahweh.
So he's given us the prototype. He's showing us how we deal with the adversary, the devil. You just resist him. You didn't see Yeshua pull out a flaming sword and try to fight him, do some egg bale goon on him and, put him in the hell. No, he just said, nah, I'm not doing it. I'm going to resist you. Go ahead.
Then the devil takes him up into the holy city and sets him on a pinnacle of the temple and said unto him, If you be the Son of Yahweh, cast yourself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest at any time you dash your foot against a stone. And Yeshua said unto him, It is written, You shall not tempt Yahweh your Elohim.
Now, is he arguing with him? He's not arguing with the adversary, the devil. Not at all. This is how we're supposed to deal with conversations. We're not supposed to be arguing with people. When you're dealing with somebody that's adverse to the word, that's the same thing as adversary. Devil just means adversary. Satan just means adversary. Adverse against the word. Darkness versus light. So when you're talking to somebody and they're trying to get you to transgress a commandment, you're dealing with the devil, the adversary, the devil. You ain't got to argue with him. You don't have to prove. He has no authority over you. It shows you right how you deal with it. You give him the scriptures and you say, no, I'm not doing it. Go ahead.
Verse 8.
Hold on, Elder. Hold on. Go ahead.
I just want to bring the point up just now, since you was in the Old Testament, the Torah, speaking about, the same thing Yeshua just spoke just now in Matthew 4:4. Then he goes again when he's talking about what you just read, about how Satan, Hasatan, tried to tempt him, and then how you say persuade him to throw himself off, because he was trying to speak to that the son of Elohim that's inside of him. Go ahead on. Let me see you throw yourself off, you know what I mean? They see if you can get that how you say that pride running through Yeshua, say, because he's trying to be subtle with him, you understand? Just go on, throw yourself off there. Let me see how that flesh works, the angels will take care of you. He won't dash your feet. That's the same thing people always say, well, I don't understand what goes in the Old Testament. It's in the New Testament, but that just shows you twice in the same book where Yeshua was in the Torah. That's in Proverbs, Psalms 91.
Right, prophecy.
Yeah,
right.
And tell you about exactly what the prayer was about against the Satan, and how Yahweh takes care of his son and take care of his children. In the same way, if you believe in him, you take care of him, he'll protect you. But don't go do something foolish, because that's what he's trying to say. Why should I even follow the voice of the adversary? To make me do something stupid or tempt my father.
Right.
When I know, point blank, my father can't. If I accidentally hurt myself or fall, he will take care of me and protect me. Because I'm innocent. I'm not trying to injure myself. Why willfully try to hurt yourself, to lift your own self up, with pride, so
right.
Like that. I'm going to show you the attitude, No, he's trying to show us how we supposed to be, what kind of ambassadors we supposed to be. Don't lean under man's understanding or your understanding because you take pride, you want to show him something. No, it's in the book. Learn what's in the book. And I think another reference is the same when Lazarus was in the lake of fire. And he wanted Abraham to send, the rich man wanted that Abraham send Lazarus to go down to his brother. So they don't follow him there. He said, no. They got the same chance you got. In other words, they're not going to believe if he comes down there to show them. So that's the other side of that coin. No. You got the same chance you have. So tell them about whether Yeshua is going to be tempted by the adversary, the devil, you understand? So he can show pride and his power and stuff like that, so Satan can try to say, okay, I got you on that one. Or you got the other side where I'm begging and pleading for you to send Lazarus down for my brother to find me. He said, no, Moses is down there. The word is down there. The same choice you had to make it the right decision, they have the same choice. Because they're not even going to be persuaded if a dead man comes back to life. No, it has to be in them that they're going to follow the right way. And so you got the same chance you have. No, you can't go. So I want to make that point that people see both sides of it.
Right. And it says you shall not tempt Elohim. We not proving Elohim. Elohim proving us. He's proven. So how are we going to prove him? And he's testing that pride because he understands what comes with that flesh is in that blood, sinful flesh. That blood is influenced by emotions and all this type of thing. So he's testing Israel, the spirit that's inside of Yahshua, the firstborn, Yahshua. He's testing him to say, do you know how to deal with these emotions that you didn't have to deal with as a spirit because you didn't have this flesh. You didn't have this blood in you. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Again, the devil takes him up into an exceeding high mountain and shows him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them, and says unto him, all these things will I give you if you will fall down and worship me.
The devil's a liar. He's a point blank liar. All these things I will give to you. You can't give me all these things.
Nope.
This belongs to me. I created it. How you gonna walk up to the creator of something? You gonna walk up to Tesla and say, Tesla, you see this light right here you created? If you worship me, I will give you this light. You look like a fool. He's created all this stuff. It belongs to him. It's in his care until he gives it back to the Father. So this is how the devil operates. He's a liar. He tries to use the lust of the flesh and the enticement of the eyes, the visual of what you see, to get you not to pay attention to the subtle lie that he's giving you here. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And said unto him, all these things will I give you if you fall down and worship me. Then said Yahshua unto him, get you hence, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship Yahweh your Elohim, and him only shall you serve. Then the devil leaves him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him.
Those angels could have came at any different time and said, hey, don't talk to Yahshua like that. Get away. Hey, this is Israel. Nah. The angels allowed him to do his business because he's the word in flesh. He's supposed to be serving the example that even him and Satan himself is coming after him. We getting the little flunky demons, the little basic ones like pride and lust and all those little, man, this had the adversary, the devil himself, come at him. And you notice he was patient with him. No, I'm good. Until he said, worship another Elohim. Oh, get the hell away from me. What's wrong with you? That's when he started getting turned up right here. Whoa, get from around me. You know this word. So the devil realized, just like with the adversary of the devil, he realizes here that, listen, I'm not going to move this man. He's going to stay holding to this word. So I'm not going to waste my time. I'm gone. He's gone. So if the devil himself would not stick with salvation himself, what makes you think the adversary of the devil going to hang out with you and just stay with you and try to mess you up all this time? You ain't that important. I ain't that important. Your salvation don't depend on me. The salvation depended on this man right here, Yahshua HaMashiach. And the devil himself said, look, I'm out. This ain't going to work. Let me go find somebody else.
Verse 12. Now when Yahshua had heard that Yohanan was cast into prison, he departed into Galilee. And leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is upon the sea coast in the borders of Zebulun and Naphtali, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, by the way of the sea beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people which sat in darkness saw great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up. From that time Yahshua began to preach and to say, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And Yahshua, walking by the sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Kepha, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he said unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And they straightway left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw other two brethren, James, Jacob, the son of Zebedee, and Johanan his brother, in a ship with Zebedee their father, mending their nets. And he called them, and they immediately left the ship and their father and followed him.
And this is also an example. These weren't, he didn't go into the synagogue and grab, here, let me get Gamaliel, come here. Let me get, Caiaphas, come holler at me. He's taking people that are regular working people that would not have had the kind of money to possibly own this huge, volume of books that all the word was contained in. And he grabbed regular people, but they knew something spiritual. And when Yahshua called them, they left. They left their father, they left their town, they left their money, they left their obligations. Yahshua called me, it's time to go. And this is how it is in our lives. When Yahshua calls us, this word calls you, you are going to suffer loss if you don't answer that call. That loss could be your salvation in your life, because he's calling you for a reason. He's not calling you to come around and just hang out and snap your fingers. Let's play, thumb war or something. He's calling you to come do some work. Go ahead.
One thing on that too.
Go ahead, El.
That's another illustration right there, verse 19, when it's talking about follow me and I will make you fishers of men.
Mm-hmm.
And people take that verse that Yeshua said and go make an idol out of it. Go and make this symbol look like a fish and put on the back of their cars and so forth like that, and shirts and stuff like that, and think that's what they're talking about.
Right.
No. You're making an idol right there. See, he said that in the commandments. Don't make no idol. And that was verse 4 or 5 or something like that about fish anything under the water. So let you know, don't do that. He's telling you, because these guys understand, they're fishermen. They know it had to labor to get that fish, throwing that net over there, dealing with the hot sun, rocking and rolling on the ocean, on the body of water, trying to worry about sharks and all that kind of stuff that's in the water. And then hopefully they can throw their net over and get enough fish to feed their families and hopefully sell. So he's saying, no, you labored for all that fish in the water. I'm going to show you how to fish for men, to labor with the men, to give them my Father's word. And then you give them meat, food. You understand? So most people taking it, why do our people always have to make an idol out of it? Just like they did with that brass serpent. Supposed to look at the brass serpent until they can heal whatever misery that was on them at the time. But no, they don't want to worship it. They cause most problems. So I just want to bring that point up, because in this chapter alone, in the chapter we just did, shows so much of how it was bastardized in these so-called religions, which only came up until the 16th and 17th century. It's when they made these 5 different religions out here that people worship. I think the oldest one of those 5 is being a Baptist. I think it came out in 16-something. So they need our people need to know the truth.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to hit the points right now.
Right. And that was a good point you brought up about that idol, how they put the little fish on their car.
Yeah.
And then you look at the hat, the Pope, he wears the fish hat.
Dagon.
That's Dagon. That was a god. That was a pagan god of the, what was it, Canaanites?
No,
the Philistines. It was a pagan god that they kept.
Dagon.
That's why they had that fish hat. And that's why Christianity is all over the place, because they took all the religions of that were dominated, all the lands that were dominated, and they took the idol from each land and said, it's all mine, it's all me, it all came from me. Mm-hmm. I created every god. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Verse 23.
And we're at Matthew chapter 4 and verse 23.
And Yeshua went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the good news of the kingdom and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. And his fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with diverse diseases and torments, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan.
All right. Let's go to Psalms, Tehillim, chapter 69. Psalms, Tehillim, chapter 69. We had some technical difficulties, lost connection or whatever, but we should be back up. If you missed any of it, which you probably did if you're watching it on Facebook, you can always go to IsraeliteGathering.com and watch the live YouTube stream, or go to the YouTube page, which is just Israelites Gathering on YouTube, and you can see the past videos or this current video live. But one safe place you can always watch all of our streams, anything that we do, is you can go to the website, IsraeliteGathering.com, and you'll see the live stream right there on the front page of the website.
Psalms, Tehillim, chapter 69, and verse 1. Save me, O Elohim, for the waters are come in unto my soul. I sink in deep mire, where there is no standing. I am come into deep waters, where the floods overflow me. I am weary of my crying, my throat is dry, mine eyes fail while I wait for my Elohim. They that hate me without a cause are more than the hairs of my head. They that would destroy me, being mine enemies wrongfully, are mighty. Then I restored that which I took not away. O Elohim, you know my foolishness, and my sins are not hid from you. Let not them that wait on you, O my sovereign Yahweh of hosts, be ashamed for my sake. Let not those that seek you be confounded for my sake, O Elohim of Yashra.
And that's a prayer that any leader that is leading the children of Yasharal has to make sure that you have that same prayer in your own prayers when you pray before the Most High. Because when you are leading the children of Yasharal in some kind of form or fashion, or you're responsible for them, when something happens to them because of you, Yahweh holds you responsible for that. Now, if they doing stuff that you tell them not to do, that's one thing. But if you mislead the little ones, you causing the little ones to stumble, which means you offend the little one. When you look at the Greek for that, that means to cause to fall, to cause to stumble. So he's saying, listen, you know I'm foolish. You know I'm a sinner. You know I make mistakes. But please don't let the people that are your little ones that are following you, following your word, that are waiting on you, fall because of me. Go ahead.
Verse 7. Because for your sake I have borne reproach, shame has covered my face. I am become a stranger unto my brethren, and an alien unto my mother's children.
And this is prophecy. This is what's going to happen to you when you get in this word. You're going to be a stranger to your brethren. They don't know you no more. Oh, well, I knew the guy that used to do this and do that. I don't know this guy. This guy seems a little kind of religious. I don't know. I don't know him. So I'm just going to kind of stay back from him. And your own family's going to turn away from you. Say, hey, this is not what we were raised doing. You know we pagan worship. You know we worship every holiday. What's wrong with you? Go ahead.
Verse 9. For the zeal of your house has eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproached you are fallen upon me. When I wept and chastened my soul with fasting, that was to my reproach.
And that's another prophecy. The zeal of your house has eaten me up. That's also brought up in the New Testament when it talks about Yahshua. Go ahead.
I made sackcloth also my garment, and I became a proverb to them. Verse 12. They that sit in the gate speak against me, and I was the song of the drunkards. But as for me, my prayer is unto you, O Yahweh, in an acceptable time, O Elohim, in the multitude of your mercy, hear me, in the truth of your salvation. Deliver me out of the mire, and let me not sink. Let me be delivered from them that hate me, out of the deep waters. Let not the water flood overflow me, neither let the deep swallow me up, and let not the pit shut her mouth upon me. Hear me, O Yahweh, for your loving kindness is good. Turn unto me according to the multitude of your tender mercies, and hide not your face from your servant, for I am in trouble. Hear me speedily. Draw near unto my soul and redeem it. Deliver me because of my enemies. You have known my reproach and my shame and my dishonor. My adversaries are all before you. Reproach has broken my heart, and I am full of heaviness. And I looked for some to take pity, but there was none. For comforters, but I found none. They gave me also gall for my meat, and in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink.
All right, and you have more prophecy. This is why he talks about the volume of the book was written about me. I came in the volume of the book. So, meanwhile, Dawid thinks that, this is some great words he's coming up with. He's flowing right now. He's like, man, my heart is inspired. I'm writing all these things. Little does he know he's prophesying about the Mashiach and what he has to go through.
Matthew, Mark, and John.
Go ahead.
Verse 22. Let their table become a snare before them, and that which should have been for their welfare, let it become a trap.
All right, and this is what's killing us to this day. Let their table become a snare before them. Remember, when we were hungry, it was Yahweh that fed us. Yahweh gave us all these things. But we have turned the lust of our flesh to overeating. When you see when we were in the wilderness, it gave an omer for every man. Just because you was overweight or tall or whatever, you didn't get more food. You had enough food, period. But now, because we are rich and fed to the full, we forget Yahweh and we eat all manner of unclean things, and we eat we can't stop eating. We get very what's the word
Surfeiting?
No. When you eat too much,
Gluttonous.
We get gluttonous. We eat more than we need because it's available, and this is something that we have to look at. We got to pay attention to that. Are we eating to live or living to eat? Because how can we sit and eat that much food when we got people starving out there? Go ahead.
Verse 23. Let their eyes be darkened that they see not, and make their loins continually to shake. Pour out your indignation upon them, and let your wrathful anger take hold of them. Let their habitation be desolate, and let none dwell in their tents. For they persecute him whom you have smitten, and they talk to the grief of those who you have wounded. Add iniquity to their iniquity, and let them not come into your righteousness. Let them be blotted out of the book of the living, and not be written with the righteous. But I am poor and sorrowful. Let your salvation, O Elohim, set me up on high.
All right, so let your salvation, your word, let your word, your law, let it set me on high. And going back again to let their table be a snare to them, the food that we was given, the angels' food and the spiritual food that was given was the word, was the bread. That's what we were given. But instead, that same word that was supposed to feed us and save us, we allowed that to become defiled, where now it's killing us. We dying in this same law, the same law of animal sacrifices, the same law of atonement, all these laws, it's now killing us. This table is being made a snare because we feel like, well, we killed that animal and now we done ate this sacrificed ox or whatever. We good. I ain't got to repent. So that was supposed to save us. That was supposed to help us. But instead it became a snare for us because it enabled us to continue doing unlawfulness and iniquity. Go ahead.
Verse 30. I will praise the name of Elohim with a song, and will magnify him with thanksgiving. This also shall please Yahweh better than an ox or bullock that has horns and hoofs.
All right. So I will praise the name of Elohim with a song, and I will magnify him in thanksgiving. This shall please Yahweh more than an ox or a bullock that have horns and hoofs. Go ahead.
The humble shall see this and be glad, and your heart shall live that seek Elohim. Verse 33. For Yahweh hears the poor and despises not his prisoners.
He hears the humble, the meek. Go ahead.
Let the heaven and the earth praise him, the seas and everything that moves therein. For Elohim will save Zion and will build cities, the cities of Yehuda, that they may dwell there and have it in possession. The seed also of his servants shall inherit it, and they that love his name shall dwell therein.
All right. So let's get into the law. It's about what we're supposed to eat and what we're not supposed to eat, so we can make sure our table is not a snare. There's a reason why he made these laws pertaining to what we can eat and can't eat. We're just going to go to Leviticus, Wayakra, chapter 11. These are the laws pertaining to clean and unclean food.
Leviticus, Wayakra, chapter 11, and verse 1. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe and to Aaron, saying unto them, Speak unto the children of Yasharal, saying, These are the beasts which you shall eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatsoever parts the hoof and is cloven-footed, and chews the cud among the beasts, that shall you eat. Nevertheless, these shall you not eat, of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof, as the camel, because it chews the cud, but divides not the hoof. He is unclean unto you. And the coney, because he chews the cud, but divides not the hoof, he is unclean unto you.
And a coney is a rock badger. Go ahead.
And explain for those who may not know what the cud is.
Okay, the cud is the grass, the grass that's on the ground. He chews it, and I think they have two stomachs, right?
Bringing back up the food to re-eat it,
right?
Reprocess it, like a cow.
Said cow has 4 stomachs. Yeah. So it's eating grass, it's eating greens, it's eating straight protein, basically.
I know I've heard somebody say a coney was a rabbit, but it's not. I've heard on TV, but it's a rock badger.
Right.
Verse 7.
Hare is a rabbit.
Yes.
Right.
And the swine, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he chews not the cud. He is unclean to you.
He chews dead things, dead people, dead dogs, snakes, anything, poison. It's a human. It's a living garbage disposal. That's his job. Just like funguses and maggots and things like that. That's their job, is to eat dead things so that the clean things don't get defiled by the unclean things. That's not for us to turn around and eat. Go ahead.
Of their flesh you shall not eat, and their carcass you shall not touch. They are unclean to you. Verse 9. These shall you eat of all that are in the waters, whatsoever has fins and scales in the waters, in the seas and in the rivers, then shall you eat.
All right. So pertaining to things that are in the ocean, the things that you eat is anything that has fins or scales. So if it doesn't have fins and it doesn't have scales, it's unclean. You don't have to memorize everything. It's just that simple. Fins or scales. And the scales show a different type of fish, because when a fish doesn't have scales, it's a bottom feeder. It eats from the bottom, and it gives out certain secretions in the skin that is not clean. That's different than you have a fish that has scales. Go ahead.
Verse 10. And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing that is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you. They shall be even an abomination unto you. You shall not eat of their flesh, but you shall have their carcasses in abomination.
All right. So these things are abomination. That doesn't mean that you're going to physically die right then and there because you eat the thing. And that's what people like to say. You're not going to die if you eat pork. You're not going to die you eat catfish. But you're killing yourself. You're killing your soul slowly. And you also defiling your temple, which is putting you in danger of being put out the kingdom because you're unclean. So with us, this is going to eventually spread out to the other nations. But with us specifically, we're the example. So we're not supposed to be eating that at all, period. And science is caught up with the Bible. They have done toxicology reports on clean and unclean animals, especially fish. And they have shown the toxicity of these animals that the Bible says is unclean is way higher. It's way higher than the toxicity of a clean animal. So the Most High knew all these things from before science was able to catch up. But we have all these diseases, we have all these health problems, we have all these overweight people, and we don't tie the two things together, say, oh, we're eating all these unclean foods and we're being gluttonous with the foods that we eat. Go ahead.
Verse 12, whatsoever has no fins nor scales in the waters, that shall be an abomination unto you. And these are they which you shall have an abomination among the fowls. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination. The eagle and the ossifrage and the osprey and the vulture and the kite after his kind, every raven after his kind, and the owl and the nighthawk and the cuckoo and the hawk after his kind, and the little owl and the cormorant and the great owl and the swan and the pelican and the gier eagle and the stork and the heron after her kind, and the lapwing and the bat. All fowls that creep going upon all four shall be an abomination unto you.
All right, so these are birds of prey, birds that eat other animals. And birds that eat other animals, they don't have no problem eating a dead animal that's on the ground. They'll pick it up and eat it. They don't care. One animal will kill it, the other animal swoop down there and get the animal that was killed by another animal. Go ahead.
Yet these may you eat of every flying creeping thing that goes upon all four, which have legs above their feet to leap withal upon the earth. Even these of them you may eat, the locust after his kind, and the bald locust after his kind, and the beetle after his kind, and the grasshopper after his kind. But all other flying creeping things which have 4 feet shall be an abomination unto you.
All right, so the grasshopper is clean. The locust is clean. The beetle is clean, but these are specific types of beetles. These are leaping insects. Not every beetle is clean. These are certain type of animals that has legs above their feet. And then it's talking about which have 4 feet. All other flying creeping things which have 4 feet shall be an abomination to you. Go ahead.
So more than 4 feet is a no-no. No centipedes. Verse 23. Verse 24. And for these you shall be unclean. Whosoever touches the carcass of them shall be unclean until the even. And whosoever bears aught of the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. The carcasses of every beast which divides the hoof and is not cloven-footed, nor chews the cud, are unclean unto you. Every one that touches them shall be unclean. And whatsoever goes upon his paws among all manner of beasts that go on all 4, those are unclean unto you. Whoso touches their carcass shall be unclean until the even. And he that bears the carcass of them shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. They are unclean unto you. These also shall be unclean unto you that among the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind.
All right, so let me just make a quick point right here. There's a doctrine going around that you can't have a dog because he's unclean. You can't have a dog. It's unclean. It's an unclean animal. It's unclean to eat.
That's right.
When it's talking about carcass, let's look at the Hebrew word for carcass. The Hebrew word for carcass is nebelah. Nebelah, spelled Nebelah. The Strong's number is H5038. And that is from age 5034, a flabby thing. That is a carcass or carrion, human or bestial, often collected figuratively and idle. Dead body, dead carcass, dead of itself, which died, that which died of itself. So you cannot touch the dead bodies of any of those animals that he said you're not supposed to eat. That's what it's talking about. So if you have an unclean animal that is in your house and you have to remove it out of your house, you don't have to kill it. You can remove it out of your house and you can still be clean. You just have to wash yourself. But if it's dead and you touch it dead, it's unclean and it has disease. It has something that could harm you or harm your family. So we got to watch these fables that people always try to tell you. And it usually comes from people that had some kind of bad experience. Like, they're afraid of dogs. So they make all dogs unclean. Or their kid want a dog. And they don't want the kid to have a dog. So they make up a law saying, oh yeah, dogs, you can't have it. But get in the scriptures. Don't let people just tell you all these kind of things. Research what it's saying. Don't assume because it say carcass it mean one thing. Look at the definition. See what the word means so you can make sure that you're within the proper understanding.
I think, brother, they were dealing with the one that says on pause.
Mm-hmm.
27. You read 27 again, it says,
Mm-hmm.
and whatsoever goeth upon is pause.
Dogs. Right.
Let me push this a second.
Yeah, you see, that's what they were trying to do, the whole thing, talking about verse 27, about whatsoever goeth upon his paws. And we can look at a lot of animals that got paws. I mean, bears got paws, but I don't think you're supposed to eat no bear meat either. So
right.
They talking about among all manner of beasts that go on all fours. So they think in that sense it says those are unclean to you. Whoever touches their carcass shall be unclean, and you're very correct. It's not dead. You just say what the name of carcass means. You know what I mean? It's when it's dead. They said the lion.
What the shepherds had out there with the sheep?
But it didn't say eat it.
The shepherds had dogs.
Right.
They had sheepdogs. They had dogs there to help them to keep the stuff in order.
That's right, but he didn't say eat it.
This is what the adversary, the devil, will try to do. It will use people to make our laws more grievous on us so that we'll be constantly in our mind in a state of uncleanness. So then we'll believe, well, I'm already filthy, so I might as well continue doing this transgression. Go ahead.
29. These also shall be unclean unto you, the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind, and the ferret and the chameleon and the lizard and the snail and the mole. These are unclean unto you among all that creep. Whosoever does touch them when they be dead shall be unclean until the even. And upon whatsoever any of them when they are dead does fall, it shall be unclean, whether it be any vessel of wood or raiment or skin or sack. Whatsoever vessel it be wherein any work is done, it must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until the even, so it shall be cleansed. And every earthen vessel whereinto any of them falls, whatsoever is in it shall be unclean, and you shall break it. Of all meat which may be eaten on that which such water comes shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk in every such vessel shall be unclean. And everything whereupon any part of their carcass falls shall be unclean, whether it be oven or ranges for pots, they shall be broken down, for they are unclean, and shall be unclean unto you.
And even with all this technology that we have right now, we still cannot properly identify microorganisms. What is those things that you get in your body that
Bacteria?
Not just bacteria. I'm lost
E. coli,
not that.
worms,
Parasites. We still can't properly identify parasites. And parasites are on all these different unclean things. And this is why he's like, don't even touch it. Wash your hands. Stay away from it. Don't eat any of these things because you're ingesting parasites. And when you ingest parasites, this is the reason for these mental illnesses and mood changes. These parasites will cause you to eat different things. For example, there's certain parasites that like to eat sugar. So you have sweet tooth. You have other parasites that like to eat acidic things. So it causes you to crave for these type of things. And the craving, when you're not feeding that craving, it changes your mood and your attitude. Whereas you're supposed to be loving to your family, you agitated and this, that, and the other, which just makes it easier for you to fall into transgression. So the Most High is saying prevention is better than cure. Keep your body healthy and clean so you feel good, so you want to act good, so you'll be in your best position to fight this adversary that's trying to come against you.
I was even watching this thing. This lady was getting real sick rapidly, and her husband was getting worried, and family was getting worried, and took her to the hospital. It was like, oh, it's a brain tumor. They were recording when they went to go remove the tumor, and it was a very delicate part around her brain stem. Was moving the flesh around. They see a little worm jiggling around and stuff, and it was like on the verge of causing a seizure. And they said had it been left, unchecked, just eat around her brain like an apple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's parasites, man. When you look at these people with mental illness that you see out there in the street, why homeless people have mental illness so much? Because they eating anything. They being subjected to all these parasites. And it was some kind of study that I was reading. It said something like 90-something percentile of people with mental illness are suffering from parasites. Parasites, something that simple. All has to do with cleanliness and diet.
Right.
That's it. You can clear that up with cleanliness and diet. Go ahead.
Verse 34. Of all meat which may be eaten, on which such water comes, shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk in every such vessel shall be unclean. And everything whereupon any part of their carcass falls shall be unclean, whether it be oven or ranges for pots, they shall be broken down, for they are unclean unto you, and shall be unclean unto you. Verse 36. Nevertheless, a fountain or pit wherein there is plenty of water shall be clean, but that which touches their carcass shall be unclean.
Parasites, organisms, bacteria, all this stuff is on food. So when you touch that, or it's touching something else, it's not cooked. So it's unclean. Go ahead.
And if any part of their carcass fall upon any sowing seed which is to be sown, it shall be clean. But if any water be put upon the seed, and any part of their carcass fall thereon, it shall be unclean unto you.
Because the water activates the seed. It's dead. It's just like a dead thing in the dormant state until you put water on it. So now you put water on it, you're allowing that organism to grow with bacteria and parasites from the dead animal, the carcass, to get into the plant, which now makes the plant that's growing unclean. Go ahead.
If any beast of which you may eat die, and he touches the carcass thereof, shall be unclean until even. And he that eats of the carcass of it shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even. He also that bears the carcass of it shall wash his clothes, and be unclean until the even. And every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten. Whatsoever goes upon the belly, and whatsoever goes upon all four, or whatsoever has more feet among all creeping things that creep upon the earth, them you shall not eat, for they are an abomination.
And there goes your centipedes.
There you go.
Go ahead.
You shall not make yourselves abominable with any creeping thing that creeps, neither shall you make yourselves unclean with them, that you should be defiled thereby.
Now, the Most High told us in the wilderness, listen, 6 days collect the manna, the 7th day don't eat. Simple instructions, because I'm trying to prove you to see whether you're going to keep my law or not. So many of these things, he could have made these animals where, like, you eat it, nothing happens to you, you're okay. But he purposely made things a certain way and gave specific instructions because he's trying to see, we know food, trying to get people to stop eating certain foods is probably some of the hardest thing for people to get in this word. No, I'm talk to some of your grandma and people like that. Oh, I'm not stopping eating the pork. This be the main argument. Oh, it ain't gonna kill me. Okay, it ain't gonna kill you, but you killing your spirit. You defiling your spirit. So the food, the belly, has been made a snare to us. A snare. Our table is made a snare to us because it involves lust. Lust doesn't have to be just a woman. Lust could be food. They call it food porn.
There you go.
You can have lust in any form or fashion. And if the Most High says no, that's where it should have stopped. No, period. But because we have free will to do that, then we freely are allowed to kill ourselves. And that's what we're doing as a nation. We're killing ourselves. Go ahead.
Verse
44.
44. For I am Yahweh your Elohim, you shall therefore sanctify yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any manner of creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.
So there's his answer. He didn't say, well, you're going to die if you eat that. No. He's saying point blank, because I'm holy, because I'm set apart. Holy means Kodesh. The saints are Kodeshim. When you're set apart, that means this is here, and these two are phones. I'm sanctifying this phone. I'm putting it over here. It's away. It's not doing everything that everything over here is doing. It's completely different. I purposely took this away and put this over here. So when he's saying, be holy, he's sanctifying you. These other nations eat all this stuff. That's what they do. They don't know no better. You are different. I'm sanctifying you. I want your body clean. So as much spirit that you can handle, I can place on you. Because the spirit don't want to deal with the unclean vessel. I gave an example to my mother. I said, if you have a box right here, and this box is clean, it's perfect, it's excellent. And then you have another box over here that is the same box as that other box, but we done put crap in it. Crap, little dog crap, your crap, crap from everything, bird crap, everything been in there. And now you have a diamond, the most precious thing in the world. And you got to put it in one of these vessels. Where are you going to put it? The clean box that's taken care of, that's clean and nice, or the box that used to keep crap? Even if you don't have crap in it anymore, the fact that it used to keep crap. We can understand that same carnal concept where our bodies are the same way. Where am I going to put the life of man, the spirit, the firstborn, the most valuable thing in the world? Where am I going to put it? In this thing right here that has crap in it, unclean stuff, and disobedient, or the vessel that keeps the commandments, that tries, that is as clean as it could possibly be? Go ahead, Elder.
Very good point, brother. I mean, if we want to, go along with also what Cephas had stated when Yahweh was bringing information to him when he told him to sit down and eat on top of the roof, in the dream state and so forth, and he said, no, sit down and eat. I think 2 or 3 times he told him that, but he put all manner of food in front of him. He also put unclean foods in front of him. And he said, I don't eat unclean foods. I never let that touch my lips. He knew back in scripture that they're not supposed to eat that because they cannot come unto the Father. You see, so they never let unclean food pass their lips. Even though later on he made him understand it's not about this food per se right now. It's also about the Gentiles that was coming to knock on his door because they were unclean, they were dogs, they were pagans. And he allowed them to have the Holy Spirit, but they had to show themselves unto him because he was left, in charge at that time, the rock. Okay, so he also knew the spiritual situation of being unclean if you eat that food.
Right.
So think about it like this. My brother's expounding on, wherever you want to keep a diamond. You want to keep a diamond in a bag that was full of manure. Some people might have that mentality. Well, hey, a diamond is not going to absorb the manure because it's one of the hardest substances in the world. Okay.
It's just going to smell like crap.
It's going to smell like crap. And they say, oh, I can wash it off and all. But okay, what about something that you trying to protect from somebody? What about a book? That had all your information in it. And you want to protect it against your numbers to your bank account, whatever is more precious unto you. Would you put that in the box of crap? You understand? Would you put your special food in that box if you were trying to hide it from a thief? Mm-hmm. Your special candy in a bag or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. He's trying to tell you where your heart is at is where I'm at. Mm-hmm. If you want to worship me. So that's a man's mentality is where his heart is at. Mm-hmm. So if you want me to come into your heart, you have to cleanse yourself by as what I lay down in this subscription right here. This recipe. Try this recipe because it's the only way I can come unto you. If you cleanse yourself by the means I put down here. And if we read scripture, he shows many different ways that he tells his priests to cleanse themselves so they can do a proper, sacrifice or come unto him, in the temple. and to do holy, how you say, handle holy things. You know, you just can't come any way you want to the Most High.
Right.
He lays down order, rules. He's not chaos. He's order. So this is what he's trying to tell his children from the beginning. Stay in your tent. You understand? Because you come out your tent, you go do something stupid, and I got to chastise you. Most of the time, I'm going to have to kill you if you do something, foolish enough to where you breaking the law. You know, I have to show the rest of the people. This is what I expect of you. So I'm teaching you as little babies right now. Follow this one law, this one step, and I'll give you, when you pass that one, I'll give you the next one. You're able to receive more. So this is why I'm glad my brother brought that point up, because a lot of times people don't understand sometimes with examples that we give. You know, so maybe we should expound a little deeper. You understand? So people can understand the same way Yeshua expounded on, we talk about fishers of men. That was their job. They were simple men. People were farmers. You know, they were herdsmen. You know, they were fishermen. They were carpenters. So they understood the language in which they lived. So if you explain it, they understand the things better. They will explain it to in layman's terms. Spiritual words in layman's terms. So that's why I'm glad we had to dig into that a little deeper.
Right. And I want to go back to something. A sister just provided some information regarding the grasshopper, saying that the grasshopper, which I'm Googling now, has more than 4 legs. So it would be unclean. So I went back and I said, well, let me look at the Hebrew word for grasshopper, because it literally says, and the grasshopper after its kind, as far as what you may eat. But when you look at the Hebrew word for grasshopper, the Hebrew word for grasshopper is H2284, which is Hagab. Hagab, spelled Chagab, H2284. And it says, of uncertain derivation, a locust. So when it says grasshopper here, it says that you can eat grasshopper. But it looks like a mistranslation, because it's telling you can't have more than 4 feet, for one. Can't, jumping. But then it also says you can eat locust. But then it says you can eat grasshopper. But then when you're looking at here, it says grasshopper in English. But that's supposed to be locust. So that looks like a mistranslation. Now, I wouldn't really have a problem with that, because I'm not eating grasshopper or locust or anything.
We ain't got to.
But at the end of the day, if we in a starving situation and we need the favor of the Most High, we got to make sure that we get a better understanding of these things that we can't eat, because you don't know what you gonna do when you starving.
John the Baptist ate locust.
So that was a good information Sister Abigail provided, and we can research that further. So any of those who are interested in eating a grasshopper, make sure you look these Strong's word up and get a little bit more understanding of this before you eat a grasshopper. So praise Yah for the sister that brought that up. All right, go ahead, brother.
Verse 46. This is the law of the beast, and of the fowl, and of every living creature that moves in the waters, and of every creature that creeps upon the earth, to make a difference between the unclean and the clean, and between the beast that may be eaten and the beast that may not be eaten.
All right. So let's go to Matthew chapter 15. So we know, like what the elder brought up with the story about the vision that Kepha had about, clean and unclean animals, all manners of beasts and domesticated animals and things of that nature. And he knew, wait a minute, you can't be asking me to eat these unclean things. So that was an understood law amongst the Yehuda. We knew clean and unclean. So he had to realize that he was talking about more than what you're just eating. He was talking about the Gentiles. Don't call no man common or unclean, that Yahweh has cleansed. If Yahweh has allowed him to receive his sight and receive the Holy Spirit, who are you to call somebody unclean?
There you go.
So that's what he was talking about there. So now we're going to have Yahshua talk about something that they also like to take out of context when they're talking about it's not what goes in your mouth that makes you unclean, but what comes out of your mouth. he's not talking to you about clean or unclean foods, because then he'd be talking against the commandments. And he's the word. He can't contradict himself. He is the word. He's the example. So we're going to read that story. Let's go to Matthew chapter 15, and we're going to start that at verse 1.
Then came to Yeshua scribes and Pharisees which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do you also transgress the commandment of Elohim by your tradition?
Okay, so what were they accusing him of doing?
Dirty hands. Eating dirty hands.
Eating without washing their hands. Now, I ain't see no law, statute, or judgment in here say you got to wash your hands before you eat your food.
Nope.
Now, that's cleanliness. But at the end of the day, if you starving and you ain't got nowhere to wash your hands, as long as you ain't touched no unclean animal or something like that, go ahead and eat. But what they're talking about here is the Pharisees had traditions of washing their hands, where they had to wash. And you see this with the Catholic Church does it.
Yeah.
They copy that same tradition where they wash their hand 3 times and he washes the pot and do all this type of stuff. These are rituals that they're doing. So it was a ritual that the Pharisees had to do, a Talmudic ritual, that they had to wash their hands a certain amount of times before they eat, or they were considered unclean. So Yeshua about to check them. Well, why are you transgressing Yahweh's commandments
There you go.
for your traditions that are made by men?
There you go.
But keep in mind, nobody here is talking about, well, Yeshua, why are you eating that pork chop? Nah, I can do whatever I want to do. It's not what goes in the mouth that makes you unclean, it's what comes out. No. Point blank, he's going to confirm in the beginning of this statement, what is the story about? Eating with unwashed hands. And when he finishes the story, he's going to confirm it again, just like a proper writing structure. When you write in a paragraph, your conclusion and your introduction should paraphrase exactly what this whole thing is about. Go ahead.
Verse 4. For Elohim commanded, saying, Honor your father and your mother, and he that curses father or mother, let him die the death. But you say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever you might be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. Thus you have made the commandment of Elohim of none effect by your tradition.
Now, I remember, Jonathan, you had brought up, either in your studies or you heard somebody elaborate on that a little bit more. Do you recall about the gift?
Yeah. If you were to bring a gift unto the temple, there's two. So far, I came across 2 understandings. One of them being a gift to parents might be a bribe.
Right.
So you're not allowed to give it unto your parents, just unto the temple.
Yeah.
So you're saying it
I
is
don't know about
korban.
that. That sounds very Talmudic and very Pharisee-ish on that one.
Yeah. So
but it was another one that you have brought up.
And then, that's the one I remember prominently. And then recently, I remember another one, and I can't remember what the proper interpretation of it was, but something to the extent of like it's gifting to the temple, and because it's for the temple, has to stay with the temple, and it's not for your parents, or something to that extent. But the bribe one is the one that stuck out the most to me about if you can't something about if you give it unto your parents, it'll be like bribery. So you can't pervert the eyes with the gift.
Okay.
So you know something.
All right, well, y'all will come back. It was something different, but
Yeah.
I remember it was something that elaborated that. So that'll come back to us. Go ahead.
Verse 7. You hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy of you, saying, This people draw near unto me with their mouth, and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. And he called the multitude, and said unto them, Hear and understand. Not that which goes into the mouth defiles a man, but that which comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man. Then came his disciples and said unto him, Know you that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying?
All right, so this is the one they like to take completely out of context. Not that which goes into the mouth defiles a man, but that which comes out of the man defiles this man. He's talking about your heart being defiled, spiritual defilement. He's not talking about your carnal defilement when you literally are unclean carnally, which is also going to leak over to you spiritually as well. He's talking about what makes you spiritually unclean. Go ahead.
Verse 12. Then came his disciples. Verse 13. But he answered and said, every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted shall be rooted up. Let them alone. They be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. Then answered Kepha and said unto him, declare unto us this parable. And Yeshua said, are you also yet without understanding? Do not you yet understand that whatsoever enters in at the mouth goes into the belly and is cast out into the draught? But those things which proceed out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands defile not a man.
So he's letting you know point blank, I'm not talking about eating unclean food.
There you go.
To eat with unwashed hands defiles not a man. He could have said to eat unclean food does not defile a man if that's what he was talking about. He could have put them all both together and started with unwashed hands and finished with unclean food.
Good point.
But he didn't. So if you go in here and you cherry pick this scripture and you say this is why you eat pork, you transgressing the law, you blaspheming the Holy Spirit. Period. Because that's not what he's talking about. Go ahead.
Verse 21. Then Yeshua went there and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coasts and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, O master, you son of David, my daughter is grievously vexed with a demon. But he answered her not a word, and his disciples came and besought him, saying, send her away, for she cries after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal.
So he told her the truth. Look, I ain't come here for you. I came for the lost sheep of the house of Yasharal. Point blank. Go ahead.
Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Master, help me. But he answered and said, is it not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs?
It is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to dogs. This bread, this word is for Yasharal. That's who I came here for. That's in who he came into the flesh to see, his brethren, period. And it's not right. It's not good. Meat means right. It's not right to take food that I'm supposed to feed my children with and take it and cast it to the dogs. So he's calling her a dog, an unclean animal. You're not even a child. You're a different creature. And that's not what I'm here to do. Go ahead.
And she said, truth, master, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table.
So the woman humbled herself and said, you're right. You did come here for the children of Yasharal, and it is not right for you to not feed the children of Yasharal and feed me of another nation. When I got a whole nation that can feed me. Nobody trying to feed Israel. He had to send somebody for Israel. But at the end of the day, the dogs eat the crumbs which fall from the master's table. So even just a little bit of word that people get spilling over from us being fed to the full is sufficient for them. Go ahead.
Verse 28. Then Yeshua answered and said unto her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it unto you even as you will. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour.
All right. So according to her faith, great is your faith. Because that's how the Gentiles are saved. They're saved by faith. We're saved by covenant. We're saved by the laws, the covenant that we made. And our new covenant that we take up. That's what we saved by. They saved by faith. The fact that you believe in this God of the Hebrews. That you believe that you are going to change your actions and humble yourself when you're in a superior state because Israel fell for their transgression. That's faith. Go ahead.
Verse 29. Verse 28. Then Yahshua answered her and said unto her, O woman, great is your faith, be it unto you even as you will. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. And Yahshua departed from there and came near unto the Sea of Galilee, and went up into a mountain and sat down there. And great multitudes came unto him, having with them those that were lame, blind, dumb, maimed, and many others, and cast them down at Yahshua's feet, and he healed them. Insomuch that the multitude wondered when they saw the dumb to speak, and the maimed to be whole, the lame to walk, and the blind to see, and they glorified the Elohim of Yahshua.
Right. They glorified the Elohim of Yahshua. They didn't say praise Jesus. They glorified Yah. They said hallelujah. Go ahead.
Then Yahshua called his disciples unto him and said, I have compassion on the multitude, because they continue with me now 3 days, and have nothing to eat. And I will not send them away fasting, lest they faint in the way. And his disciples say unto him, Where should we have so much bread in the wilderness, as to fill so great a multitude? And Yahshua said unto them, How many loaves have you? And they said, 7, and a few little fishes. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves and the fishes, and gave thanks, and brake them, and gave to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude.
All right, so Yahshua literally fed people fish.
That's right.
So he fed people food. So you can eat fish.
That's right.
So to say that that's flesh, you can't eat that. Well, so why Yahshua fed people fish? He fed his disciples fish. Go ahead.
Verse 37. And they did eat, and they did all eat, and were filled, and they took up of the broken meat that was left 7 baskets full.
Wow.
And they that did eat were 4,000 men, beside women and children. And he sent away the multitude, and took ship, and came into the coast of Magdala.
All right. So this shows the same way he fed his children in the wilderness. He's doing it again now with the Mashiach, feeding them in the wilderness, doing this miracle that what you have is going to be enough to stretch over. That's the same thing that happened with the manna. What you have is going to be enough for 2 days. So put your faith in Yah. Don't worry, like it says, don't worry like the Gentiles, what you going to eat and what you going to wear. Don't do the birds, they fly around worrying about what they're going to eat, but the Heavenly Father feeds them. They don't store this stuff. So we shouldn't worry about that. We should prioritize the things, doing the works, keeping the commandments, following his lead, and all these things will come to us. It said, out of all this, who was it? Ecclesiastes, was it? Or Psalms? One of them, they said, of all this, I've never seen the righteous, the children of the righteous beg for bread. He going to take care of his people because you taking care of his work. What kind of job is not going to provide for the worker that needs? Even the slave master feed the slave. So what you think that your heavenly Father is more wicked than the slave master? More wicked than your job that will feed you when they have lunch meetings, they bring in some food. Mm-hmm. They more righteous than y'all? Let's go to the conclusion. We're going to go to Zechariah chapter 14. Because Yahweh takes so much pride in feeding his people that he created feast days. That you just eat, you feast. You feed each other. You feed and on the feast days you're supposed to feed the poor, the homeless, the fatherless, the widows. You're supposed to feed these people. So he takes pride in feeding people. So when he takes pride in feeding people, and he says, on these days, y'all gonna eat. All of y'all gonna come together and y'all gonna feast. And once I establish my kingdom, all the other kingdoms are gonna have to come here and they're gonna have to respect this and they're gonna have to feast. To the point where it says, okay, well, you don't wanna come up and eat when I'm feeding? I got something for you.
Yeah, right.
Zechariah chapter 14.
Zechariah 14 verse 1. Behold, the day of Yahweh comes, and your spoil shall be divided in the midst of you. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall Yahweh go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. And there shall be a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south.
All right, so when it's talking about his feet shall stand in that day upon Mount of Olives, Mount Olivet, it's also prophetic. It talks about Yahshua. Why are you sitting here staring at Yahshua? The same man you saw leave on Mount Olivet is the same place he's coming back. So all these scriptures are matching. They're all coming together. How would he know this same man you looking at leaving is going to come back to the same spot? How do you know that? Because it's already written. The prophets already gave us this. Go ahead.
Verse 5. And you shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, you shall flee like as you fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Yehuda. And Yahweh Me'alahim shall come, and all the saints with you. And it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to Yahweh, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at eventime it shall be light. And it shall be in that day that living water shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the hinder sea. In summer and in winter shall it be. And Yahweh shall be king over all the earth in that day. There shall be one Yahweh, and his name one. All the land shall be turned as a plain from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem. And it shall be lifted up and inhabited in her place from Benjamin's gate unto the place of the first gate, and unto the corner gate from the tower of Hananiel unto the king's winepresses. And men shall dwell in it. And there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited.
So Jerusalem shall be lifted up. It shall be the highest point on the earth. Go ahead.
And this shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth.
Hey, that sounds like nuclear.
That sounds like nuclear bomb right
That sounds like something real serious, or like what you were talking about, that sulfur.
there.
That sulfur come down you and burn you right where you stand, where you turn into a statue. Go ahead.
And it don't cool when it hits your flesh. It just keeps burning
like,
straight through.
Yeah, like phosphorus.
Like liquid.
Like phosphorus.
Verse 13. And it shall come to pass in that day that a great tumult from Yahweh shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Yehuda also shall fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance.
And it talks about the saints shall take the kingdom. So this ain't our kingdom. We ain't trying to take America. America ain't got to worry about us. America got to worry about their own deeds. They gonna have to deal with that. But when we go back to our land, Yehuda is gonna go first. When they blow the trumpet, the camp of the east goes first. So we, the saints of Yehuda, have to go take Jerusalem back. They're not giving it to us. We taking it back. So if you going over there now, you ain't taking it back.
Nope.
That's not what that is.
Nope.
But some people have to go there to set things up and know the land a little bit better and be able to play their part. But it's not for the whole nation to go, because we have never left that way. The whole nation decided, hey, we just gonna go. Let's all just leave. We had no choice. Go ahead.
Verse 16.
15.
This is verse 15. And so shall be the plague of the horse, of the mule, of the camel, and of the donkey, and of all the beasts that shall be in these tents, as this plague. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came up against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, Yahweh of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.
All right. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations. So that means the other nations are going to be left. There's going to be people from other nations.
That's right.
Because there's somebody left.
That's right.
Who's supposed to come up here and worship the king at tabernacles if they all dead? If all Gentiles just die? Were they ghosts coming up? They spirit? Casper gonna show up with a gift? He unclean. He can't come up there. He dead. Don't make no sense.
Verse 17.
And they coming up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, an 8-day feast. Where you eating, partying, where you're commanded to party. You can't even be sad on that day.
Nope.
So Yahweh has said, okay, you want to party for all these dead gods? Well, come party for a living God. Come through. Come through to J-Land. Come through. And they like, no, I don't like all this, I'm gonna stay over here in my land. We got food. Okay. Yeah, you got food for now. But when you ain't got no rain.
No rain, baby. No water.
Go ahead.
Verse 17. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahweh of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain.
Okay, so you shall have no rain. And okay, well, I got sprinklers. I got a faucet. Or I'll just go to the lake down there. Oh, by the way, there's no more seas. There's no more ocean. If you want to read other further prophecies, it talks about the king. There ain't going to be no more seas.
No.
So you're going to have to depend on that rain. So you're going to have to walk in righteousness, because if it don't rain, your people don't eat.
They don't drink, no eat.
Go ahead.
Verse 18. And if the family of Mitzrayim go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Mitzrayim, and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. In that day there shall be upon the bells of the horses holiness unto Yahweh. And the pots in Yahweh's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Yehuda shall be holiness unto Yahweh of hosts, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and seethe therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of Yahweh of hosts.
All right. So that's all we're going to do today. We want to keep in mind, looking at the current condition of our people, we're the number one of all these diseases from Deuteronomy 28, all these plagues of Egypt. A lot of them have to do with what we eat and how we eat, microwave and everything. And, not eating enough vegetables and eating red meat all the time. Even though it's clean, you can eat too much of it.
Gorged on meat.
Not cooking, eating bloody steaks. Talking about the steak ain't good if it ain't got. This one Gentile told me she anemic, she low on iron, so she got to eat bloody steaks. I was like, oh well, hey,
there's iron in broccoli and spinach.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, you just want to eat a bloody steak. You about 350 pounds, so that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do.
And how you 350 pounds and you lack blood,
but you low on iron, but you 350 pounds. So we need to watch what we eat. We need to make sure we're not being too gluttonous by eating too much. I know I'm a victim of that. I'll get up late at night after I do what I do and be hungry, and I'll walk around looking and I just ate. But it's a gluttonous spirit, and we got to learn to control the flesh, especially when you got people out there that are starving, because when it's going to come to a point where the food ain't going to be so readily available. And if it's not so readily available, then what you going to do when you got starving children? You going to do like our ancestors did, turn around and eat the children? Or are you going to fast? So that's all we're going to do today. Let's watch what we feed ourselves carnally and spiritually, and keep these vessels clean. Like he said, he is holy, so we are supposed to be holy. So any last questions or comments before we close in prayer?
Just one.
Go ahead, Elder.
Just making a little last point when you read that last verse about there should be no more Canaanites in the house of Yahweh of hosts. And when he mentioned the Canaanites, he was talking about these so-called dogs, really, the people who they tell you in Revelation 22, verse 15, for without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters and whoever loveth and maketh a lie. So this comes right after one of our favorite verses, when a lot of people talk about they blessed and highly favored, and they need to go to this verse, Revelation 22:14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. And then that statement that I said, that verse after, but it just tells you this is the mindset and this is the spirituality that you have if you're not going to enter the kingdom. If you won't be in that kingdom, because these are the things that you're going to be doing if you're a sorcerer, idolater, a liar, and so forth, a whoremonger, dogs or someone that are without, or pagans and so forth. So I just wanted to make that point up, not that people would think about Canaanites or they're Africans, just Hamites. No, it's all people who deal in that level of spirituality right here. So if you want to follow Yahweh and do His will, keep His commandments, His statutes, and judgments, so forth, do His holy days, keep them in your heart, then we might find our way in that kingdom and live with our sovereign Elohim. But if not, this is what He calls dogs. Right there, all these type of attitudes and spirituality that we do on the face of this earth.
Right. And that's a very good point. It says flesh and blood will not enter the kingdom. Your bloodline will not walk you in that kingdom. Your bloodline will not put you out that kingdom. This is why when Yahshua came back, He said, "Feel me. Spirits do not have flesh and bone."
That's right.
So He didn't say flesh and blood. So if you don't have blood, you don't have a bloodline. So it's not about your bloodline. Your bloodline determines your order and what you're supposed to be doing. But it's not going to keep you out of the kingdom or keep you in the kingdom, because that bloodline has to die.
Right.
That has to be a death. And you have to become a spiritual person, a spiritual being. So let's go ahead and close in prayer. All brothers remove their head coverings. All sisters pray with their heads covered. And we face the east towards Jerusalem. All right, Brother Yonatan, can you go ahead and close us out in prayer, please?
Most righteous and eternal Father Yah, we thank you, O Yah, for this opportunity to come and gather before you and sup on your word, O Yah, the true manna from heaven, O Yahweh, that bread by which man can live, that those waters by which a man can drink and thirst no more. We thank you, Yah, that you've given us the craving for your pure word, O Yah. You draw us near to the waters where we may be healed, and giving us access, Yahweh, to your kingdom, Yah. May you walk before us, Yahweh, and clear the land and prepare a place for us, O Yah, as we prepare ourselves and remove from ourselves all the unclean things that may hinder us, that will disqualify us from the reward that awaits us at the end of this journey, O Yah. We thank you for the hope that you placed within us, Yahweh. We thank you for a mentality to continue to strive and continue to overcome all obstacles, Yahweh. We thank you for continually making us gold, though we started as corrupt flesh, Yah. We thank you, Yahweh, for everything you have done. We approach your throne with gratitude, Yahweh, and we will continue to approach your throne in praise and thanksgiving, O Yah. May you continue to be with us and be a faithful Elohim. In the name of Yahshua, our share we pray. Amen.
Amen.